So our project for the CIT360 was something we called the Eagle Tracker, and the idea behind that was basically being able to record the location and some characteristics of birds that you find in your area. And in particular, we were looking at eagles.
So the purpose of our application was to allow eagle enthusiasts the opportunity to both track and find eagles in a way that was crowd supported. So rather than having any one dedicated source for information, which is next to non-existent, we could create essentially a database catalog of all the occurrences that eagles were spotted, since they're fairly rare. And so in this application, we decided to utilize Scrum to develop the application and to give our approach to working through the application in an organized manner.
So some of the topics that we used are listed below. In the course we have more topics, but we weren't able to implement all of them. But we did get a lot of the project completed. We did some Java collections, and where we took pieces of code and we were able to print that out to the user. We were able to serialize that code where we could actually pull it from a database. We didn't have the database functionality set up correctly, so we didn't take that part, and we're still going to configure that at some point. We're still working on our HTTP URL connection, which Rachel in our team did, and she kind of set it up so that Eagle people or Eagle enthusiasts would be able to click and find out more information by going to websites to learn more about the eagles. But we did our best, and we actually did implement an MVC pattern where we were able to make sure that each of the views were set up and that all of the logic for most of our application was done within the controller.
And the methodology that we chose to follow is an adjusted version of Agile. And in our if you look at our documents, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over it. In our Eagle backlog, actually let's go with the Scrum outline. We have a Scrum team, which is basically all of us, and we perform the work. We create tasks that we put on our Eagle backlog. And also there is the stories, the user stories. And we didn't do a sprint, but that's just because it didn't seem like it would help us in our group, at least on our needs. And we didn't have a product owner, but we had like someone that would run the meetings. So they would act like a Scrum Master, and like we owned that role as a product owner and as a Scrum team. And then our meetings were maximum 60 minutes. We didn't do a stand-up, the 15 minutes usually, but in those meetings we presented the challenges we had on our code, and also what we had done that week, and we also taught each other. And outside of our meetings, I know that there were some members that would message each other on like holdups with their code or certain concepts that they struggle with, so that in a sense we kind of implemented a stand-up only when necessary. And then if you look at our Eagle backlog, again it shows our user stories, our diagrams implemented, and it also correlates to our brainstorming slide, which shows kind of in detail what we were thinking and was an outline that we followed for our code.
Alright. The real success that we found in this project is we were able to put together a cohesive program that allowed us to demonstrate what we were able to do and work together and practice our Java coding. and that we were able to overcome some of the challenges that we had. And to go over those challenges, one was commitment and time. In particular, at the beginning of the semester, we started with 9 people in our team. At the moment, we have 5 presenting. And often in our meetings, we would have only 3 or 4. And those meetings were the primary method of communicating. We also had our Google Hangouts and some remote communication. But because we didn't have physical meetings or class time to work together, we were rather limited in what we could do. We also had coming in a rather limited understanding of technologies. We had very varied understandings as well, but we were able to overcome particularly that challenge by working together and teaching each other.
We thank you for joining our meeting, and more project documentation can be found at our Google Drive location, which is located at this link. At this time, though, we would like to demonstrate a piece of our application that we have been able to build and that we can continue on with in the future. At this moment, I will end the presentation, and I will point you now over to our application. So inside of here, I will run a really quick demo of our application. So in here, we have our startup page. And it takes a second because what it does is actually has a wait menu. And then from here, we have these 3 options where a user can either report an eagle, find an eagle, or it can exit the application. I'll start first by showing you just a sample of report eagle. So after the user enters 1, it will then go through a list of different counties that they're in, and then they can choose a number based off of those counties. So if I enter 1, it will then take my response. Then it will iterate through a list of eagles. These would have been generally populated from the database, but since we did not have that connection up, we just basically had to create a JSON object or a JavaScript object to be able to iterate through. So from here, let's say we click bald eagle, and then it will basically ask us the size of the eagle. So this is kind of what the reporting purposes are for. And then from the screen, if I just go over to the next one, it will take us back to the main menu. We could also find an eagle. So this is kind of what our application does, and that is our presentation. Thank you.